Spring is in the air at Global Voice Broadcasting. Fresh new shows are hitting the airwaves every day. Shows about all the things that matter to you in your life. Music, fashion, celebs, and more. It's all here, and it's getting better every day. Only at Global Voice Broadcasting.
I highly recommend Ms. Hicks. Her books, her CDs are encouraging.
I bought her book, A Hill to Climb. She's a very inspirational speaker.
And I look forward to one day being able to work with her.
Your power lies within you. Let it loose.
Aspiration, inspiration, motivation, edification, determination. These are the keys of life success, brought to you by none other than award-winning author, motivational lecturer, business consultant, and much more, as she gets you aimed to your purpose. And now, ladies and gentlemen, young and elder, from Hollywood to the entire world, here is your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, Louise Hicks, along with her co-host, yours truly, Kennon Wesley Mason.
Hello, world. How is everybody today? I'm Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, and I'd like to welcome everybody back to our segment today, where we have a very, very dynamic show for you today. And since it's coming up on Mother's Day, I think you all will enjoy this. Mother-daughter relationships. Transgenerational trauma. And we're going to learn what that word transgenerational means, because I'm really not sure what it means. And our guest today is Miss Denise Williams. But before we get into that, Kennon?
What do we got? I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening and watching from all around the world, as we do have a special guest, Miss Denise M. Williams, to talk about mother-daughter relationships. But first, we're going to jump right into sports therapy. It was a big weekend for sports, so we're going to jump right into it with Robert Snell. What you got, Robert?
Thanks, Kennon. Well, obviously, APAC. That's what's on everyone's mind. The whole world turned their attention to sports for a weekend. And unfortunately, for a lot of casual fans, it didn't live up to the hype and it disappointed. But that's kind of the thing about this whole thing is everyone knew it was supposed to be like the fight of the century, like that this was like Mayweather's last true opponent to stand in his way. But for casual boxing fans, I think they didn't realize going in that this was 5 years past both their primes.
Long overdue.
And what?
Long overdue.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like
long overdue.
Pacquiao's trainer Freddie Roach has been trying to get this fight going since about 2010. You know, ever
Right.
since Pacquiao was named the fight of the decade, and Mayweather felt slighted by that. This fight has been looming ever since to really like show like who deserved that title of fighter of the decade. But the bigger picture here is that this was, to me, a great fight. It was exactly what I wanted. I've seen previous Mayweather fights, so I knew that he fights like a businessman. Like, it's all about the money team for him. He is
Right.
the money man.
Right.
It's the money team. And he fought like a businessman. He wasn't fighting for you or me or the rest of the people. He wasn't fighting to knock out Pacquiao and give us the bloodbath we all hope for.
That's
He
right.
was fighting for the business self. He didn't get hurt. He didn't take barely any punches. He collected his $180 million purse,
Yes.
and he still has an undefeated record going to his next fight in September.
Not a bad day.
No,
Right.
For Mayweather, it was just another day
Right.
at the office, and that's what people don't realize, that he wasn't going out to bloody Pacquiao or to get bloodied.
No.
He was going out there to collect a big paycheck, and he did.
Well, it's estimated that in that one night, the gross figure looks at something close to $500 million.
Yeah. Forbes said the purse for both fighters was $300 million, and they split that. Floyd got 180 million. Pacquiao took him 120 million, which is not bad to be the loser
Right.
of. But going forward now, the question is, what's next for Mayweather? Because he obviously is trying to reach the heralded mark of 49-0.
Right.
For those of you who are more casual boxing fans, back in the day, Rocky Marciano, he was 49-0 and a heavyweight title crown, and he is now he is still to this day the only person to reach 49-0 while holding a title crown.
Rocky Marciano.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Floyd is, after the Pacquiao victory, is now 48-0, and obviously going to the September, that'll be really the only storyline left is whoever he fights, will they get in his way of 49-0 in the perfect fight?
Right.
Floyd says it's going to be his last fight. I don't believe it. I personally think that he'll see too much money in the chance to go 50-0 and to become the, stand alone at 50-0 besides being tied. And I think that's what everything's about right now for him is just keeping his record undefeated and unblemished. He did that with Pacquiao. He waited long enough until where he knew Pacquiao at this point in his career wasn't really going to be able to beat him. It would have been a shock, I think, if Pacquiao won.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't want to say that the fight was fixed.
I wouldn't go there.
But just watching Pacquiao's demeanor post-fight, and how he answered the questions.
I was so confused.
It seemed a little fishy to me.
Well, Max Kellerman, kind of, who's highly regarded in the boxing industry as like the premier boxing analyst, he was really brutal, and it wasn't your typical post-game cupcake, like interview session where they say like, oh, like, well, what's next for you? What's moving forward? He really asked him some analytical, challenging questions.
Yes.
Like, because the first question for those of you who didn't watch the fight or didn't see the post-game interview was, so Manny, like, what was your feeling about the fight? And then Manny's like, I thought you won. And Kellerman immediately followed that up with, well, why? Because you didn't do anything to show us that you won.
That's right.
Going to the fight, everyone knew that if it went to decision, it was going to be Mayweather's victory. Like, the judges weren't going to take that away from him.
Not only that, but he's the promoter of his own fights.
Yeah.
So why would he set himself up to lose for his own fight that he's promoting for himself?
Right.
He's not going to go against himself.
Yeah. I mean, and there's things that have come out post-fight that Freddie Roach, Manny Pacquiao's trainers, claiming that they asked to get Manny Pacquiao a pain-killing injection, but they filed the claim too late. And obviously, with all the paranoia about steroid usage in boxing and stuff like that, they're not going to allow for any unauthorized injections that close to the time of the fight.
Right.
So there's questions of, was Manny boxing with a hurt shoulder? But hurt shoulder or not, he didn't do enough to win because everyone knew going in you had to get Mayweather on the ropes and then knock him out on the ropes. And Mayweather knew that too. So that's why people complain about, Mayweather danced around. Mayweather didn't want to engage Pacquiao. Well, I wouldn't either because what was in it for him? Like I said, this was a business decision. This wasn't about giving the fans a show. This was about, I'm 47-0. I want to be 48-0. I want to collect my paycheck. I want to, have my next fight in September.
Well, not only that, but the fans got exactly what they wanted in the end. Because they've been wanting to see this fight for the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So they got exactly what they wanted, win, lose, or draw.
But they wanted a UFC fight is the problem. They wanted the blood. They wanted
the
brawl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. They wanted some heavyweight knockout blows, and that wasn't what this fight was going to be.
That's what they wanted. But
exactly.
But we
that's
know
what
the
they
fighters wanted the money. So
exactly.
Bottom line is
exactly. So anything else about the fight?
Honestly, $100 is outrageous to pay for a fight. Me and my roommates forked over the money. We split it up. But, I think that's the other thing boxing learned, too, is that there is a limit, because I think the expectation then for a $100 fight is way too high. I don't think that anyone can ever really, short of Manny Pacquiao, I guess, getting, just completely knocked out to the point where he can't stand up. Would have anyone been satisfied with what they paid for it? Because I think that's the thing, too. The previous high for a fight was ever $59.99 for pay-per-view, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And to make a $40 jump from, people anticipated it to be $75. And, that was going to be still a big deal. But to go all the way from $60 to $100, people then want $40 extra worth of entertainment value.
And then an extra $10 if you wanted in HD.
Which we did.
And I didn't see it. So I didn't pay anything. And when it comes on, I already pay regular for all of my social media, whatever. So when it comes on for not free because I'm already paying for it, I'll watch it. Maybe.
Well, and one other, before we go to community news, actually a bigger excitement for me was the Los Angeles Clippers.
Hello, Clippers.
A round of applause for the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yay,
At
Clippers.
the last second second.
I will
Are you
not.
serious?
I'm withholding my applause. I don't believe. Okay, so you want to talk about fixed and conspiracy theories and referee scandals and stuff like that?
Haterism.
So people for a week leading to the fight were talking about like, oh, like is the boxing gonna be fixed and stuff? People need to look no further than the NBA. If you want fixed sports, like,
there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Okay, for those of you who didn't watch, by the way, in the last 2 minutes, the refs were letting him play. You know, it was going pretty much both ways, so it's hard to really argue that. Like, the Spurs weren't getting calls, the Clippers weren't getting calls. But on the Spurs had the ball down 2 with a second left. They ran their inbounds play, and mid-play while trying to pass the ball, and the Clippers' home clock operator started the clock and let the buzzer went off, which allowed the Clippers to see the Spurs play without having to actually try to defend it.
I did see that, yeah.
And for those of you who didn't see Spurs coach Greg Popovich's reaction.
He should have been.
Yeah, that tells you everything you need to know about whether or not that game had a fair ending and why I seem animated over the Clippers winning. Because, you know, like, kudos to the Clippers. You know, like, they like to say that one play doesn't make or, you know, lose the game. But it's the play that's going to be highlighted the most because it was the last play. It's what I left away thinking about. You know, it was our lasting impression. So all I know now is that the Spurs didn't get a fair shot at defending their crown, in my opinion. That's all I'm going to say.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was a great game.
It was a great game. You know what? I don't want to take that away because it was.
It was a great game.
It was way more exciting than the boxing match.
Yes,
I'll say that.
There you go. That.
Well, I
if
have
anything,
no
that's all I wanted.
But I did see the game because I didn't have to pay extra to watch it.
You didn't? No, it came with whatever your basic ESPN cable package got.
Right.
Because I'm a Clippers fan, so
I'll watch myself then.
Partial, I guess.
But I'm saying, like,
I hear you.
Just the way that all went down, because that's the thing. Like, I would have liked to see the Clippers win in a way with no controversy. So that way, because for this team, you know,
questions.
Yeah, there was actually talks that if they didn't make it through the first round, that they were going to blow up their nucleus of Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin. So you know, this was a huge, huge step forward for them, and it was big for them. So you know what? Congratulations to the Clippers.
They move forward?
Yeah,
well, we'll see what happens next. So.
They move forward.
Yes, we will.
And on that note, we're going to turn it over to She's Back.
I'm back, y'all.
The woman, the myth, the legend.
She's back.
Shamika Brown, yes.
Hey. Hi, friends out there. I missed you guys so much. I've been taking a little break trying to get my life together, but I am back with some entertainment and community news. And you know what? As we're talking about Maypac and this huge, huge fight, let's talk about the business side when it comes to how much money HBO and Showtime actually made for the pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah.
To the tune of $400+ million.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Hey, Showtime, can you holler at me, please? Yeah, I mean, the championship fight was a huge cash cow for HBO and Showtime. And the revenues were just amazing. That's potentially the largest haul ever for pay-per-view in history.
Yep.
And, you know, obviously it came at a steep price, as you were saying. But I think that that's just a testament to how something so massive and the marketing and promotion that went into it, obviously it paid off. But, you know, there were some service problems. A lot of people complaining that they could not get the fight on time.
We actually weren't able, sorry to interrupt, we actually weren't able to see the first undercard because DirecTV couldn't get their technical support.
And it was funny because Saturday Night Live did they did a funny thing on that. It was really funny. I watched
it. They did a skit on not being able to order the fight?
Yeah, that's 45 minutes actually. Some people had to wait. And can you imagine? I'm like, yo, I need my money back. Like, seriously. I mean, you already paying a lot, and then on top of that, I'm not getting my service?
That's right.
Problem. Yeah, Comcast, they basically just stopped taking calls after a while. Like, it was pretty insane. Wow. But yeah, I just think that, you know, seeing this and how everything played out, I'm sure that, you know, the cable networks are going to be looking to, you know, really make some changes as far as service is concerned. But, you know, maybe they just didn't anticipate that it would be so crazy. So, you know, pretty interesting, but $400 million. Not a bad day for everybody. Made some millions that night, right?
Sure did.
Yeah, amazing stuff. So also want to talk about some box office numbers. You know, I always give you guys the updates on what's happening at the box office. And Furious 7 is hanging in there at number 1 with 17 million. Yeah, 17.0 million. Paul Blart, Mall Cop, I like the first one. Did you guys see?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
No.
it's
No.
really, really funny. 14.8 million. And then Age of Adeline, that's the new movie starring Blake Lively from Gossip Girl, if you remember her. 13.2 million. So yeah, not bad numbers for entertainment, box office. You know, cable, everybody doing good.
Making money.
Everybody making that moolah. Yeah, so that's it for entertainment news. I wanted to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about some community news. Obviously, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So,
Yes.
you know, all through the month of May, we are going to be spreading awareness, educating you guys, and just really giving you some food for thought. If you have a loved one who is dealing with mental illness, just to give you some support, especially for families who are dealing with it and really trying to, you know, figure out what do you do, where do you go. And so we are excited to announce a partnership that we're going to be launching called Go Mental for Change. And this is going to be a social media based initiative, all online. Just really want a call to action to all of the amazing therapists, support groups, organizations out there that are championing for mental health causes. And we will have more information for you next week just about how you can really get involved. I can tell you now that this is going to be amazing. We're reaching globally. Thankfully, we have this platform to really inspire people across the nation and beyond about this, you know, cause. I do want to mention that a couple of resources that you can check out in the meantime. Go to mentalhealth.gov. You can find the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number there, but I'll give it to you now. 1-800-273-8255. Again, 1-800-273-8255. And that's just to hold you over if you need resources in your community, but also the mentalhealth.gov will have a ticker there where you can enter your zip code to get local resources. But just about the campaign, the purpose is twofold, and it's to bring awareness and change to the current mental health laws in the U.S. and to provide resources for families, again, in need of support for loved ones who are dealing with mental illness. We'll be focusing on local programs and resources, again, supporting organizations, military support for our veterans, which is huge because, I mean, come on, you guys. They really, really do need our support here, especially in America. I mean, they come home and it's like, I just fought for the country, now what?
Right.
You know, and you know, is it PTSD?
Yeah.
Post-traumatic.
Post-traumatic, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, you do have things like that, and we really just are going to create some forums and some online spaces for you guys to sound off and really kind of talk about it. So, you know, I'm really excited, and obviously Louise will be one of the key organizers helping me get this off, and we also have Denise, who is on the line today, will be working with us, and we're just reaching out. So if you need more information, you can email us at aimtopurpose@gmail.com. Tweet us at aimtopurpose, #GoMental. We really want to hear what you have to say, and let's just connect and start spreading the word. So,
And we are live, so feel free to call in.
Absolutely.
At our number.
Yes. The number to call here from anywhere around the world, 1-323-522-5482. Once again, from anywhere around the world, 1-323-522-5482.
yes.
Please feel free to call in, and this is something that we're all passionate about.
Absolutely.
And it's something that's been really swept under the rug for way too long. And so now we're bringing awareness, since we do have this platform, just like you said, to get the word out to not only people here in Los Angeles, not only to people here in California, but to people around the nation and around the globe as well.
Yes,
Definitely.
internationally, because for me, this is something that touches personally with me because of my son. And for those of you who have read my book, you're very much aware of it. A Hill to Climb, a teenager's battle with cancer, depression, and drug addiction, because for 20 years, inclusive of the cancer, with 15 years being more of involvement for the homeless people. And so we had to do something about the laws here in America, and because it's really an American disgrace. Let's put it the way it is. How the mentally ill, adult mentally ill, disabled are treated here. We have a skid row, and I'm just wondering what is going on. So that is what prompted me to launch this program, because of my own son, who is mentally ill, disabled, and he is an adult, and these laws are stacked against families like myself who are concerned and caring. And how can a mentally ill person make a decision about their personal care? I mean, it just amazes me as to who's making these laws and what's on their mind. Yeah. So that's why we are going international with it, and we're launching this campaign, and we'll give you more information about it. Yes. And just something on a little lighter note, Mika, before if you got anything else to say, I would like to share that I did go to an event this weekend, and it was the Russian, I was invited by a friend of mine, Tamara Baleko. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Tamara. But it was the Russian Cultural and Art Festival here in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, in fact, at Plummer Park. And it was very nice. And I'd like to share, she's a great artist doing a lot of community work over in West Hollywood. She's gotten a lot of accolades for that. And since Mother's Day is coming up, anyone that would like to give their mother a great Mother's Day gift can check out her website, and you can get a Mother's Day gift for only $35 by your child just painting something for you through bestartclasses.com. That's bestartclasses.com. And Mika?
Oh, yes. I was just going to say, on top of some of the other focus areas, we wanted to mention that we will be doing a lot of education and financial resources as well. So
perfect.
I just think that that's kind of, all-encompassing for whatever your reason is that you need the support. We're hoping that we can really help you with this campaign. So stay tuned. Again, feel free to email us, and we'll have more information next week.
And shout out to the Twitter account, which is
Aim to Purpose.
There you go.
Yep.
All
Yes.
right.
And
Tweet us.
Instagram, Facebook.
Oh yeah, we everywhere, y'all.
We're
So yeah,
everywhere.
holla at us. But obviously,
YouTube,
yeah, I mean, you can
Aim
use the
to Purpose.
We'll reply.
hashtag everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you so much
We're an
for that.
interactive show.
Yes,
you
we
go.
are. And we need you guys to call in, give us your 2 cents.
Yes. Call
Hello.
us.
Yes. 2 cents, 5 cents. We want all of it.
All of them.
Yes.
Yeah. No
If you think
sense.
if you think I was wrong about the fight or the Clippers, let me know.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, I need to get on there right now because, like I said,
Well, on that note, we want to thank both of you. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we will be back with our special guest for this edition, Denise M. Williams.
Yes.
We'll be
Yes.
right back.
We'll be right now.
This edition of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, is brought to you by L. Hicks Consulting Services. When you want the best in business coaching, life coaching, or perhaps your organization, business, or company is in need of a dynamic speaker for an upcoming workshop or seminar, contact Louise Hicks for L. Hicks Consulting Services at 1-562-310-1495. From anywhere around the world, that's 1-562-310-1495. For more information about Louise Hicks and her consulting services, visit her website at www.louisehicks.biz. Again, that's www.louisehicks.biz. Or call 1-562-310-1495. L. Hicks Consulting Services, where professionalism is top priority.
Once again, hello world, and thank you all for joining us here again today, this beautiful day, for another segment of Aim to Purpose, the radio show. And I'm again Louise Hicks, along with my co-host Kennon Wesley Mason. And we're going to move right along because we have a special guest that we'll be talking to in just a few minutes. But we want to give you some background about our special guest, where we will be discussing mother-daughter relationships, transgenerational trauma with Miss Denise Williams.
Yes. Denise M. Williams is a marriage and family therapist, intern, and a graduate of Antioch University. Denise received her master's degree in clinical psychology in the spring of 2013 and has acquired over 3,000 intern hours toward her licenses and is preparing for the licensing exam. Denise believes strongly in the power of mental health and the therapeutic process so much that she left a lucrative career in arena management to become a marriage and family therapist. Psychoanalytic, cognitive behavioral therapy, narrative therapy, and solution-focused therapy are the main modalities that Denise uses. However, her approach is eclectic when it comes to her therapeutic practice because one therapeutic model does not fit all. Denise currently works in a private practice and where she works primarily with cisgender and transgender women and girls. Her goal is to assist women in uncovering the untruths that cause them mental anguish and then empower them to write new narratives that will allow them to live the life they choose. So let's give a warm Aim to Purpose welcome to our special guest, Denise M. Williams.
Hello, Denise. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great, great. And thank you for joining us today on our show and discussing with us. And love your bio. You've done some wonderful, great things to help out with all of the problems and issues we're having. And we're just happy that people like yourself have taken on these issues to help bring about a better society for us to live in. And we thank you for joining us. And let's just jump right in here and talk about, I'm just curious to know, with Mother's Day coming up, we know sometimes mothers and daughters do have their issues. I have my issues with my daughter. She's 25. And transgenerational trauma. And let's talk about what exactly is transgenerational trauma. Well, the word itself, let's see what that means.
So let's just take the word first, transgenerational trauma. Technically, when we talk about trauma, usually like when we're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, something like that, it's a first-hand experience where, let's say you were in a car wreck or you got mugged or raped, you know, usually that's when we speak about trauma. It's generally firsthand. However, transgenerational trauma is the trauma that's passed down from one generation to the next generation. Mm-hmm. You see it in Holocaust, you know, survivors of the Holocaust taking the trauma that they suffered and then it being carried from one generation to the next generation. You see it in African Americans coming out of slavery, and it's then been passed down from generation to generation. If you just look at the headlines, you see it right in the headlines. I use, honestly, the most recent is Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina.
Right.
That's transgenerational trauma.
Right.
That's a good analogy because we did see that happen. And when I first saw what we were going to talk about, and I said to myself, what is transgenerational? What does that mean, transgenerational trauma? So when you broke it down just now and explaining to us, our listening audience, that really helps us to better understand what this means, that it's something that's passed down from generation to generation, and it's causing a lot of problems. And particularly when you use Bobby and
Whitney and Bobby Christina.
Whitney, that you talk about the African American community, and it has no boundaries when it comes to wealth, obviously, because people can have wealth, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a lot of these transgenerational traumas. Is that correct?
And interestingly enough, I was doing some reading, and I ran across a stat that basically said that as African Americans often become more educated, we seek less help.
Now that's amazing.
Yeah, so you're right. Money, education is not always the cure-all. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna go seek help after that. And that has a lot to do with the structural racism that we deal with. We often feel like if we get educated or if we're in positions of power, we can't seek help because people will see us as weak, or they'll see us as, not strong. They don't see an illness. They see something different. At least that's the way it's pictured. Mm-hmm. That's the way it's told to us.
Mm-hmm. And that is so true as you express that structural racism, because it does come into play when we talk about relationships, and particularly in the African American community. And this mother-daughter relationship, transgenerational, passing it down from generation to generation, it all comes into play in families, and it can create not only issues with mothers and daughters, but really the entire family. And whether you're educated or not, if you're not educated with a sense of a sense of healing, mind, body, and spirit, you really are not being educated, and you're not being helped in the sense that you need it, because it takes a holistic approach to get healing. And when you don't have that, and some of these things are passed down from generation to generation, it brings back to mind just what we saw the other day, this quote-unquote Mother of the Year, when she was dealing with her son out here rioting. And I'm not by any means condoning the rioting and all the stuff that people are doing out here, because personally, this is my opinion, I don't think that that is the way to get the help that is needed. I think we need to. But
that's actually a perfect example. If a lot of people look at it, and I've heard many varied opinions from, oh, she probably does it all the time, or, oh, that's good, you know, we need to correct our children. But ultimately, at the end of the day, culturally, historically, before we came over to America, we weren't necessarily into corporal punishment. You're talking about generations upon generations of believing that in order to get our kids to behave the way they need to behave,
gotta crack that whip, huh?
Crack the whip, exactly.
Yes.
And that's transgenerational trauma. That is a perfect example of how that trauma is passed from one generation to the next over many, many years. And now it's gone on for so long, then of course there's this long debate about should we or shouldn't we? Well, I think we should, or I think we shouldn't. And I don't advocate for or against. I think that, you know, it has its place. But what I will say ultimately is what I saw was a mother acting out of fear.
Right.
A fear of a history of trauma. She knew that she needed to get her son off of that street ASAP, but she was acting on ingrained trauma from years and years past.
That's right.
And you are so correct about that. And we know that this was not a daughter. It was a son, but it could have just as easily been a daughter. Had she had a daughter out there, I'm sure she would have done the same thing and felt the same way, because you love your children. And I do agree that she was acting out of fear. And in terms of mother-daughter relationship, I can express that because I have a daughter that's 25 years old now. And I know we are all a product of our environment. We raise our children. Some people say whip, don't whip. And we don't always have the best relationship with our daughters sometimes because of our environment and how we've been raised. Unfortunately, my daughter and I have a good relationship. We have our difficulties and our differences. However, I think we have a pretty good relationship. We've gone through issues in the past and had to work through some things in order to get to where we are now. But overall, as you mentioned, a lot of this come from, we need to always find, I think, and I want to ask you about this, I think we need to look at the root of where these things come from. And I say that because I was reading an article, I think it was this weekend, where Senator Rand Paul, who I believe has tossed his hat in and he's running for president, and he made the statement that these riots and things are created because of fatherless, how did he put it, absentee fathers. And that was pretty much it in a nutshell, absentee fathers.
And again, I'll say, look at the history. Where did we, come on, let's think about America. Where were the first riots? The Tea Party? Wasn't that really a riot?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Yes.
You know, when sports teams win or lose, you see it happen all the time. So this whole thing where they want to begin to blame it on the absent parent or the absent father, I'd say try again.
Right.
Look at America's history. and then talk about where this comes from.
You're right. And how the relationships between parents, mothers and daughters, and mothers and sons, and just families in general, these relationships. And just to share with you, when I read this about absentee fathers, it brought back to mind some things that I had to address in a commentary, because I know that the root cause of this absentee fathers is not, it really has nothing to do with the riots. And a lot of times we see not just Congress people, politicians, legislators, and so forth, they're putting the blame on other issues to take away the spotlight where it should be. And
on the real issues.
Oh, right, on the real issues. Because knowing myself, growing up in the South, in Shreveport, and I had a pretty good relationship with my mother, but I look at my mother as a daughter, and we're talking about mother-daughter relationships again, but this all ties into everything else we're talking about, because I look at my relationship with my own mother, and I had a good relationship with my mother. However, I looked at the structure as I look back, and I'm grown now, with the structure of what went on, how families were torn apart, so you didn't have that opportunity to bond like you should have. And a lot of this, they were torn apart, and you get to the root of it. The root of it started in slavery. And when people don't want to talk about this, I think they're really missing out on the main point.
To heal.
Absolutely.
Well, you're missing out on the opportunity to heal, because
Absolutely.
if you don't talk about the root cause.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I teach, or one of the things that, well, I teach, and when I'm in session with people, is I teach beliefs, values, and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So every behavior comes from a belief system. We behave based on the things that we believe. And so you may not always understand a person's operating system, which is their belief system, but if you look at the behavior, and then that's why I said, just simply look at that mother. Bam, she's hitting that kid. If you stop, you analyze the behavior, and you say, why would she be slapping her child? Oh, that's just what she does. No, let's look further. And then you get to the fear.
Yes.
Fear that this is going to happen because it's been happening for centuries, and so there is the behavior. So, and when it comes to mothers and daughters, the same type of thing. You look at some of the, what I call social narratives, some of the dominant social narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I work a lot with women of color, but you see some of the stereotypes. If you just start with the stereotypes amongst African American women, per se, there used to be the stereotype of the welfare queen, or you look at the stereotype of the teenage pregnancy, or mothers having babies young, and generation after generation. You have to really begin to look at the root cause.
Yes.
And there's a saying, you can't give what you don't know.
Yes.
You can't teach something you don't have.
And a lot of that give what you don't know goes right back to the root. And when fathers were pulled out of the home, because I remember as a child, and I'm writing about this in my next book, we were on welfare for a short while because of racism. My father, who would be over 100 years old now, was not able to get a decent job to take care of his children. And without that, they are forced out of the home. Many fathers were forced out of the home because of the system. It had nothing to do with them, many of them wanting to leave, but because they weren't able to, in order for the family to eat, they were on welfare. And then the welfare would come out, and they would look for, through your house, and look for any representative of a man being in the house. But yet,
could not be in the home.
Absolutely. So the father could not be there with the children. So how dare Senator Paul to do this and say this? And I mean, it was really frustrating to me to say something like that when you pulled apart families back when all of this stuff started, back in the slavery days. And we have to get to the root of what happened and educate. It's not a matter of blaming now. What we need to do is start healing and finding resolutions, because we know what happened and what created all these problems. It was what I call the Willie Lynch syndrome. And a lot of people haven't heard of that. And that plays into all of this, how we get bad relationships between mothers and daughters and sons and mothers. It's just, it's a tragedy.
And, I think that we as a people, especially African American women, the rates of education is really rising. We are getting higher and more advanced degrees at a much greater rate. However, for me, it's not always just about education is definitely it, but there truly is a healing component in mental health that needs to happen. So we can talk about, in theory, what's going on, but then there has to be a practice and a true healing. The ability to become vulnerable. But when we talk about the passing down from one generation to the next, let's just talk about the Superwoman syndrome, passed from one generation to the next in African American women. And until we begin to teach our young girls that they're allowed to be vulnerable, they're allowed to feel, you're allowed to have your emotions and that they're good, all of them. You know, sadness is not bad, anger's not bad, they're all emotions and they have a place. But until we actually learn and feel and work through those things, we are going to continue to experience at a much higher rate dis-ease. African American women experience dis-ease at a much higher rate than any other cultural and ethnic group.
That's right.
Why is that?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Why is it?
Well, and it all goes back, again, it goes back to history.
It goes back to history.
It goes back to history. I mean, once upon a time, like what you said earlier about how the once upon a time before slavery, kings and queens, they interacted with their children different. They disciplined their children different. There was a certain type of communication, a certain demeanor with the communication, and with women now being here in America, we've taken on more than the role that I guess that nature intended for them. Now we go to work 8 to 16. Women go to work 8 to 16 hours a day. Then they have to come home and tend with the children. They have to cook. They have to do this. They have to do that. And all of it creates what you just said, dis-ease.
And there's no community anymore. So it would be, and it is such that I think there was a point when you look back in history, pre-America, that yes, the fathers went out and the mothers went out, but then there was the grandmother and the grandfather and then the community elders that were there with the children. That doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
For many of our communities, not all the time, but you know, we live further apart. So we don't have that system to then back up the parents often.
Yeah.
We really don't. And I know what you're talking about from firsthand experience, because growing up where I grew up, we did have a community of an extended family. And it was not just your blood extended family. We had a community of extended families that...
Yeah, you had your neighbor and the neighbor next to the neighbor, and then you had your grandmother. And so those things are missing and they're not there. But I will say that I was really impressed this year on, I don't know if you guys watched the show How to Get Away with Murder. In one of the, I think it's the second to the last episode, I thought that they did a really good job of showcasing again African American women. And there was really a situation there, was basically was transgenerational trauma, where Cicely Tyson is the mother to Viola Davis. And in the show, she sits down in between her mother's legs and she, you know, combs her hair, she greases her scalp, which is kind of historically something that we've seen in our homes. But what they talk about is the trauma, where Viola Davis has carried this trauma of being this angry young girl, believing her mother knew that she had been sexually abused all these years. Well, she believed her mother did nothing about it. Well, what was revealed is that her mother actually murdered the man who had molested her. But in her effort to care for her child, what she did was murder the man, but she didn't care for her child because she never knew, and she never then took care of her. She never helped her heal. What she said to her was, it happened to me and it happened to my sister. And that again is that continuation. But if you haven't healed, if you haven't gone and you haven't done the work, your children won't get the benefit of knowing what that work looks like. So often African American daughters who then become mothers take that same thing and they pass it right down to their next to their child.
That's right.
Girl or boy, but with their daughters. And the reason why, you know, I talk about the mother-daughter piece is because, you know, we as women, African American women, we are mothering in many different ways now. I'm an adoptive single parent by choice. I have 2 children. I chose to adopt. I chose to parent single. And I've had to do the work. Otherwise, you know, I would continue to pass down things. And that's not to say that I'm not passing down things now, but at least in the process of continuing to do the work. We have parents who are, you know, doing in vitro and being single parents. So, you know, we have many different ways in which we're doing this, but that lineage between mother and daughter is so crucial that if we don't heal, I really believe that we rock the cradle of civilization. And if we don't heal, we are in a great, great danger.
Yeah, the patterns will definitely continue, and many women, girls and women alike, will not be able to know how to express their emotions because for generations they've been told to bottle them up and not tell anyone about their hardships through slavery or what they've gone through during Depression days or whatever. They've bottled all that stuff up inside, and it creates what you said, dis-ease.
Yes,
literally.
It shows up in depression. It shows up in anxiety.
Yes.
It shows up in intermittent explosive disorder.
Right.
It shows up in so many different ways, and then it shows up in physical disease, heart disease, obesity,
that's right,
addiction. And so you're correct. And so that's really the manifestation, and that's what I really believe is that what we are seeing outwardly in African American women is the long-standing suppressed stress, depression, anxiety. It's manifesting itself externally in a physical way.
It really is, and you named so many of them, and that's I'm glad you've brought out what this means, transgenerational trauma, because in African American women, I can speak having 3 children myself, one being a daughter. This has to start from the cradle. You have to start this, and we have to be educated on how to heal, and it has to be a holistic approach, as you have so eloquently talked about, Denise, because if we don't start from the cradle, this is how we miss out on how to heal. And going back to our parents, grandparents, it's really a generation of women, broken women, who have suffered atrocities in this country, African American black women, like no other women in this country. And when we're sometimes people are so judgmental about black women, particularly single parents, and I've been a single parent. And it is not the case when we are stigmatized. And how do you deal with your daughters when, as a female, when you're going through all of these traumas and you don't understand how to desensitize all of these things that have been happening to each generation, and it's passed down because we are a product of our environment. I look back at my grandmother, who would be over 100, and how things were channeled because they didn't understand. My mother, who is 91 years old now and still living, but she's not capable of expressing herself anymore due to dementia and other health ailments, but she has shared some things with us, and so did my grandmother. And when I hear people who don't understand and don't try to understand, and I think that's where the healing comes, when we start connecting and stop the blame game and start trying to get to the root of the problem and understanding and starting a dialogue of how all these things happen. And, you know, give us some other solutions that you're doing, because I know you have your Go First organization that you've started, and all of this plays into mental health as well, which this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to be focusing on a lot of the things that are happening in America, particularly here in Los Angeles County, whereas they make it look good on paper, and politicians will go out and talk to the public and make things look good too. Whereas we know in reality this is really not the case, and I know firsthand that it's not the case, particularly with mentally ill adults. And I know you started your Go First initiative.
So it's Me First.
Me First initiative.
I'm sorry, Me First.
That's
I'm mixing up Go Mental with Me First.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. So no, it's Me First.
Right.
And Me First, you know, and I'll share my story a bit.
Yes.
Me First it was birthed right from a place of pain. I struggled with my own addiction with food. I struggled with my own issues of depression. I had been molested as a child, and which, you know, brought about the eating, which then brought along some depression. I realized looking back, my mother probably suffered from depression as well. So Me First was born from that place. And just really quickly, I'll read you the philosophy. Me First, a philosophy for women of color on living life. We're taking care of mind, body, and spiritual health is always first. It is only through the practice of Me First that we learn to authentically care for and love ourselves in a deep and meaningful way. Then we're able to do the same for others. So what I do with Me First is I can do a couple of things. And Me First is actually an initiative of my company, WellPlay. But Me First was designed for women of color. And I do individual work with women. So you have your busy executive who's trying to figure it out and pull it together. I do intensive. I have some intensive packages where I work with them if they want to go away to the mountains, if they want to go away on a weekend retreat, and I literally sit with them one-on-one, and we go through the foundational work of how to begin to love yourself and how to begin to move yourself to the front of the line and really how to practice Me First. I also do it by workshops. I have a workshop called Me First, the Art of Self-Care. And the workshop is designed to teach the 4 founding principles of self-care. And then we actually go through and we create an action plan. Each person in the workshop creates an action plan for their own mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. And what I tell people is that we have been very quick to say, girl, you need to love yourself. Well, if you don't know how, just telling somebody is not going to just do it for them. And coming from a culture where loving ourselves and caring for ourselves wasn't necessarily something that was taught. Right. I think we believe that we just get it, like you're just supposed to do it. But when you have messages 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that are contradictory to who you are, the core of who you are. As an African-American girl growing up, if every message is light, bright, long, straight hair is what's beautiful, that tells you something different. It's a contradiction to who you are. And you internalize that. And then if you have those additional messages from within your community, oh, your hair snappy. Oh, why are you so black? Why are you so this? All of those messages are contradictory to loving yourself.
Are.
Right.
And so we just think, well, you should love yourself. And then we have this thing where there's this whole, well, African-American women, when you look at the statistics, say that, you know, we have higher self-esteem, yet we participate in high-risk activities at a greater rate. So there tells me that there's some contradiction in there. Yes. So what has happened is I believe there's a lot of resilience and resistance. So I had a friend ask me the other day, as I've been working on my own eating addiction and losing weight and taking care of myself and practicing the principles, someone said, can you really be obese and healthy? Because, you know, you hear this with African-American women all the time. I'm fat, P-H-A-T.
Mm. Yes.
And
you're right.
With obesity and high blood pressure.
Or the almighty favorite, I'm big boned.
I'm big bone, right? And all our bones are pretty much the same. So
I know.
So, but the reason that exists, the reason why we have become so resistant and in denial is because how do we arm ourselves against those messages the other messages. So we've just armed ourselves in general against all messages. So a lot of times we can't then hear the messages that say, we really got to get the weight off in order for us to be healthy.
Right.
We really got to get to the doctor in order for them to check our blood pressure and make sure we're not at risk for stroke. So it's sometimes it feels like an uphill battle, but I think with me first, I say it's time for a self-care revolution for women of color.
Yes.
It's time that we truly learn what it means to love ourselves and care for ourselves. And it's not something that you wake up and you just do. It's not about going to get your eyebrows on fleek. It's not about getting your weave tight. It's not about getting your fro padded perfectly.
Hey.
There really is some core work to really learning how to care for yourself.
Yes, it is.
And I'll share with you, there's 4 principles that I begin to work with. The first one is self-esteem versus self-worth. We talk about the difference between self-esteem and self-worth. There's a difference. Self-esteem, I say, is the armor that we carry. Sometimes it's polished, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down.
And if you could give us those, Denise, in a couple of minutes, because we are kind of running short of time.
Go ahead. We have about 4 minutes. Go ahead.
You have self-esteem and self-worth. Then we look at setting boundaries. That's a big thing for women of color. You know, we belong to 22 things: the church, the sorority, the this, the that, the PTA. So then there's setting boundaries. There's self-compassion. Learn to be compassionate for ourselves. I tell people, if the way we talk to ourselves internally is what we said to people outwardly, we'd have no friends. And the last being forgiveness of self. So when you begin to break down those principles and learn how those foundational principles work, then you can begin to work the me first practice.
I love those. Self-esteem versus self-worth, setting boundaries for yourself, self-compassion, and forgiveness. And they are vital, what you just said. I love that, and I love what you are doing with the Me First initiative, because we need that as African American women. We need to start healing, because we have a history of atrocities that have been committed against us like no other ethnic group in this country. Nobody has gone through what African American women have gone through and are still going through to a certain degree. And we need to be educated on these types of healings, not just getting a theory from school and getting a degree, but true understanding of the historical facts that have brought us where we are today and how to heal and bring about resolutions. And with that being said, why don't you give us some final thoughts within a couple of minutes and give us your website, how to get in touch with you. And we will have you back, Denise, because we're going to be working on the Go Mental campaign throughout the year. So why don't you give us a final thoughts and your website?
So my final thought is, if you don't get help from me, get help from someone. We all need it. Everybody deserves an hour on the couch. I really believe everybody deserves an hour on the couch.
Right.
You can find me at www.me-first.co, or you can call me at 424-226-6172. That's 424-226-6172. Again, I'm Denise Williams. I'm with Me First. And really, it's time to start the self-care revolution for women of color.
Yes.
I agree, 200%. There's been a rich history that's really been lost with us, and we've been thoroughly had our emotional self, our spiritual self stripped from us from knowing who we are. But the good news is that once you do get to the root cause and truly say me first, and then spread that unto the rest of your community or family, all will be great in the end, because everyone's on the same page now.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And this is for everyone. It's for us to heal, but however, we all connected in this together. And with us being healed, it helps to bring about a better society for everyone.
And you know, I say all the time that when we are healed, we can show up at the global community table really ready to work.
Yes. Absolutely. That's a great statement. Say that again.
When we do the work to heal mentally, we can show up at the global community table ready to work.
Perfect.
Perfect.
And with that being said, Denise, we want to thank you for being our special guest here on Aim to Purpose, the radio show. We are going to have you back. There's tons of questions that we could ask you, but because of time, we are going to save them for later. And with that being said, final statement of the day, as always.
As always, until next week, remember, your power lies within you. Let it loose.